Hey everyone, this is Miss Amy from Southside Library, and today I wanted to do a video for all of my older independent readers. We've been at home for a while, and the library's been closed, and it's hard to go in and get books, but don't worry, we still have digital books. Today I wanted to talk to you about The Wild Book. I was lucky enough to have checked this out before the libraries closed. It is by Juan Villoro. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly. But what I figured we would do today in this video is I'll give you the setup and I'll read you a couple pages from the book so you can see if this sounds like something that you want to read or not. And then this book is available. You can check this out as an ebook from Hoopla. So you just go to the Santa Fe Public Library catalog, type in The Wild Book, and then there will be a button that says check out from Hoopla, and you just click on it and you can check it out and read it. So you currently get 10 checkouts per month from Hoopla. So this can be one of your books. But first, the setup. Here we go. 13-year-old Juan Summer is off to a terrible start. First, his parents are separating. Then, almost as bad, Juan is sent away to his strange Uncle Tito's house for the entire summer break. Who wants to live with an odd-bod recluse who has zigzag eyebrows, drinks 15 cups of smoky tea a day, and lives inside a huge, mysterious library? As Juan adjusts to his new life among teetering, dusty shelves, he notices something odd. The books move on their own. He rushes to tell Uncle Tito, who lets his nephew in on a secret. Juan is a precipice reader, which means books respond magically to him, and he's the only one who can find the elusive, never-before-read wild book. But will Juan and his new friend Catalina get to the book before the wicked story-stealing pirate book does? So, we're going to start in chapter 3 called Uncle Tito. And so this is his parents are separating. He's done with school for the summer and he's about to be dropped off with his mom is about to drop him off at his Uncle Tito's house. And that's where we start. My uncle lived in the old part of the city. In that neighborhood, some of the houses had been knocked down to construct modern buildings. Others were about to fall apart all by themselves. And some had their balconies strapped firmly to their walls lest they drop off and split open the head of passer-by on the street. It was in this area full of collapsing buildings called the Center that one could find the house of my Uncle Ernesto, known as Tito by the family and as Don Tito by the messengers who brought him the books he ordered from different bookstores throughout the world. My uncle lived with 3 cats, a black one named Obsidian, a white one named Ivory, and the son of both, my favorite, who is white with black spots and was named Domino. For 58 years, Uncle lived without any company other than his books and his cats. Suddenly, and much to the family's surprise, he decided one day that the time had come for him to contract matrimony. He was married for 1 year to a woman of whom I remember only her round glasses and that she sneezed often because of all the dust on the books. In a moment of desperation, that lady told my uncle, "We can't live in this labyrinth. I'm allergic to old paper." Uncle bowed to her wishes. He left the house to his books and moved with his wife to a small apartment. But life without his library was very sad for him, so he decided to leave his wife and return to his books. Because of all this, I was very surprised to be sent to his house. My uncle enjoyed his solitude. He didn't hold parties or even meetings, nor did he seem to need any company other than that of his 3 cats. Why had he wanted me to go there? It was all very strange. In my suitcase, I brought with me one book, all about spiders. I had already read it and chose it precisely for that reason. I like to reread a great book more than take a risk on an unknown one. When we reached my uncle's house, I liked the head of a lion biting on a metal half-moon that served as a door knocker. They were leveling the house next door, and that made a lot of noise. Our knocks at his door with the lion head could barely be heard. My mother asked me to kick the door, but since I wore rubber-soled shoes, I couldn't make a sound that could be heard over the nearby construction. For a moment I had the hope that my uncle would never come, and I could go home with my mother. Just then the door opened. "Have you been waiting long?" Uncle asked. "From inside one can barely hear what goes on out here." It was true. As soon as the large front door closed, there was a great silence, as if we were at the bottom of the sea. "I've put in special insulation. It's the only way I can concentrate on my reading." Uncle Tito looked right at me. His eyes were so attentive, they seemed about to leap off his face. I wanted to tell him, "Don't stare at me like that. I'm no book." But I didn't dare to. There were bookshelves and books piled in columns that stretched up to the ceiling everywhere. "Come into the living room," Uncle said. The living room was a room that was slightly less congested. There were books on the walls, but not on the chairs. We could sit ourselves at a table where a map served as a tablecloth. Australia was right in front of me. I couldn't help but mention that it was my favorite country. "Splendid choice, my dear nephew," Uncle commented. "There isn't a lot of culture, nor are there antiquities in that red desert, but it's the home of the platypus, the most fabulous of animals, a biological summary, an encyclopedia of what it might be without quite being it. The platypus could be a duck, a beaver, or a marmot. Its secret lies in disguising itself as other animals in order to be itself. A great character actor." I didn't understand anything he said. Had Uncle gone cuckoo since we'd last seen him? Then he added with much enthusiasm, "What's more, Australia has the best ocean waves, not so much for their shape, but because they bathe the Australian female, a species superior even to the platypus. Somewhere I have a calendar of Australian females in bikinis." My mother looked at Uncle with concern and took my hand. She seemed to regret having brought me here. My uncle's strange words began to interest me. "Would you like a smoked tea?" he asked, then left the room before we could respond. "Will you be all right here, Juanito?" My mother caressed my hair and looked at me with sad eyes. She had told me that she needed a few weeks alone in order to look for a smaller apartment, now that we were only 3. I didn't want to worry her any more than she was already. I didn't want to worry her any more than she already was by telling her I thought Uncle was half mad. Interesting, but mad. In a corner of the room, I saw a silver cobweb in the shape of a triangle, identical to an illustration in my book, all about spiders. "I like this house," I answered. "If you miss me, you can call me." This wasn't easy. For my uncle, the phone was an error of modern life. He hated for its ringing to interrupt his reading. "I don't want to hear any voices other than my own conscience," he said when someone asked him why he didn't have a telephone. "At the pharmacy across the street, there's a payphone," my mother explained. "Here," she said, giving me a little bag full of coins to pay for the calls. Uncle returned with a steaming teapot. "Those journeys by boat were not in vain," he said. "Thanks to the daring crews who reached as far as India and Ceylon, and their captain's wonderful habit of drinking tea, today we can soak these leaves in hot water. Smell, my dear family members. Would you like some smoked tea? Uncle Tito served us before we had a chance to answer. The tea really did smell like smoke. Lapsang So Shong, that's what this rich variety is called. Is it good for children? Well, I would say that Juan is no longer a child, my uncle opined, and I liked him better. We drank the curious tea until my mother said she needed to speak to Tito alone. My uncle proposed that I take a look around the house while they spoke. He handed me a little bell. If you get lost, he explained, shake the bell and I shall come to your aid. Was it possible to get lost inside a house? Very soon I discovered that it was and how it might happen. I walked down a hallway lined with bookcases and entered the first room I came to. The room was 2 stories tall, covered with books from wall to wall, with a balcony halfway up that could be accessed through a set of stairs, letting one reach the books on the second level. I wandered into another room, not seeing anything but books. Suddenly, Domino leapt from a shelf and slipped through a doorway. I followed him and found myself in a dark corridor. I tried to find the light switch, but my hands encountered only books bound in leather. I tripped on some books that were on the floor. I again searched for the light switch and, thinking I had found it, pulled down on a small lever. A trap door opened below my feet, and I fell down a slide until I reached a mountain of sheets, in which there were also a few books. Luckily, I hadn't lost the little bell. I shook it with all my might until my uncle came. "What are you doing in the laundry room, nephew?" he asked me, surprised. "I fell from up there." "You'll get used to the house. It has a lot of nooks and crannies, but it is rather practical. You've already discovered where the dirty clothes go." "There are some books here." "They're to be dried and ironed. Sometimes I spill tea on the pages." When we returned to the living room, my mother looked very serene. It had done her good to speak with my uncle. "We've already seen how useful the bell is," Tito said. "Don't ever lose track of it. I suggest you tie it to you very securely. I have a book about knots, and I would recommend one called the Margarita. Once tied, not even God can undo it," he recited. My mother said goodbye with lots of hugs and kisses. I smelled her hair, the best smell in the world. She reminded me to call her now and then from the pharmacy across the street. When my uncle and I were alone, he said, "Very good. Now I suggest we put into practice the method of the famous detective Sherlock Holmes to get to know people. We shall speak of our defects. What are the worst faults that you have, nephew?" "I don't know." "To live with someone, you need to know what problems they might create for you. Nobody is perfect. If you accept yourself, you'll get along well." "I can't think of anything." "Are you perhaps a bit conceited? We all have our little defects. That's fine. I shall begin." He paused, took a long sip of his tea, and began to list his defects. 1. I snore at night. But this isn't a problem because you'll have your own room. 2. I don't care for people to talk to me when I am reading. 3. I can't stand for anyone to sing. 4. I get very upset about things that are not important, but I get over my anger very quickly. 5. I am horrible at numbers and keep change that belongs to other people. This last one made me worry for my bag of coins, to speak on the phone at the pharmacy. I would need to hide it very well. "Now it is your turn," my uncle insisted. "Sometimes I have nightmares and I shout at night," I answered. "I also get cramps in my legs. I'm not very neat and I leave my clothes on the floor. I don't wash my hands very well and sometimes they're sticky. I get distracted when I am thinking and I don't pay attention to what people are saying to me. I am clumsy and I break things." I had never realized I had so many defects, but it was good for me to say them out loud. "I can live with that," my uncle stated thoughtfully. And you? Can you live with mine? Yes. Perfect! Those problems will bring us close together. My uncle gave me a hug and, in doing so, knocked over his cup of tea. Some droplets fell onto his pants. Darn it! He shouted, furious. Then he watched me. See? I get very angry over things that don't matter, but I get over it in a blink of an eye. The problems that really matter catch my attention, but they don't worry me. I have read enough books for it to be this way. Authors have shown me that great problems are interesting. Do you like spiders, Uncle? I asked. Why do you ask? I pointed to the triangular spider web in the corner of the room. In this house there are inoffensive spiders that protect us from the mosquitoes. Have you tried to read while a mosquito is buzzing in your ear? I loathe mosquitoes. They are orchestras of desperation. They buzz and you can't think of anything else. On the other hand, spiders are friends of silence. They devour the mosquitoes with all their hullabaloo. I brought a book with me called All About Spiders, I mentioned. This is the right place to study the non-venomous species. Uncle Tito placed a hand on my shoulder and added, You're going to have a good time here, nephew. Then he took a deep breath, like a swimmer about to dive into the water. We are going to have a good time. This house needs a young brain. Your wits are welcome. And that's how my time in the labyrinth of books began. All right. That was the Wild Book, and you can check it out from the Santa Fe Public Library Hoopla account. Just go to Santa Fe Public Library catalog, search for the Wild Book, and when you find it, there'll be a checkout through Hoopla, and then you can read it at home. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any feedback or comments or want to let us know, or if there's anything else that we can try to help you with, please leave it in the comments down below. I hope everybody's having just a really great day, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.